Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Sometimes it's an organization. It's a movement that's the creepiness. That's what we'll be talking about today. Just to get through all the top of the line stuff, we do have a basic Facebook page for you to follow us. That's a place where people like to go on our basic Facebook page, like to go there to complain about our language. Warning now, we use salty language on this show.
Fuck yeah.
We are the most interactive in our Facebook group. It's a private group. You do have to answer a few questions. One of them promising not to be a creep, but it's at What a Creep podcast group.
Yeah, join us.
Nice, safe space to join. We're on Twitter till that fucking blows up by that anti-Semitic shithead. At CreepPod, because somebody had What a Creep for 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're at What a Creep podcast for Threads, Instagram, and we also have Blue Sky. We have Blue Sky with What a Creep. We also have a basic old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Just spell that all out. And we wanted to let you all know we have a Patreon. I'll just do it now. We have a Patreon. Yeah. We have our first 8 seasons on our Patreon feed. We also put out two bonus episodes a month. That's just Sonia and I shooting the shit. It's all these things just help us with the basic costs for the show. We also every year put out a holiday card. And
yes,
if you are new to us, if you are unsure if you are on our list, all our Patreon members are on that list. Please email us your address. If you are not sure, if you didn't get a card last year, you've just joined the last few months, if you feel uncomfortable posting on a Patreon page, we're sorry we weren't clear about that. Just email us. And Sonia, you want to tell them about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com and it's everything you ever wanted to know about the podcast, what we're afraid to ask. There are links to all of our past episodes, and you can open those up and see our show notes, and that's all of our sources, because we source every single thing we do. And if you're wondering, where does that Patreon money go? It's usually paying for these subscriptions, because we want to pay people for their work. So
Rolling Stone is like $100 a year. Just that. I mean, exactly. It gets expensive.
We pay for, Rolling Stone, The Atlantic, New York Times, Washington Post, all the things. There's also a link to our Substack. That's our monthly newsletter that comes out. That's for free. You could just sign up for that. And there's a link to our merch shop where there's t-shirts and tote bags and face masks and all kinds of stuff. The shirts are super cozy. I wear mine to bed all the time. I love it. It says, what does it say? The high road can get fucked. That's what mine says. Because it can get fucked. And we already talked about Patreon, so I think we're all set.
I want to thank Angela for joining Patreon, by the way. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
And if you want to support the show and money's tight, and we get it, the holidays are coming up, and 2023 was rough for a lot of us, just, leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. That would be amazing, especially 5-star reviews in iTunes, but Spotify, any place else, Good Pods.
Yes.
Please, review or just leave some stars. We would love that. Okie dokie smokies.
Okay.
I haven't said that in a long time.
Are you on a CB? What is that?
I think I was in middle school.
Buddy.
All right. So, what are we talking about today, for the love of God?
Yes, we are going to be talking about crisis pregnancy centers. Look, I know abortion is a very controversial topic for a lot of people. It isn't for me. Women should be able to make their own medical decisions. I don't think it's up for the government to decide these things. If you disagree, this episode's probably not going to be for you. Don't hate listen to it.
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, Sonia. We end every episode with someone who's not a creep. So just sort of fast forward to and our non-creep is an amazing guy.
Oh, okay. There you go. Just fast forward to the end if this stuff's not for you. Don't hate listen. Don't do that to yourself. There's lots of free podcasts out there that you could listen to. So, peace out. Have the day you deserve.
we just gave you 30 minutes time.
Yeah. Back to crisis pregnancy centers. So here's our sources. American College of Obstetricians and Pediatricians. I did research on this one, y'all. The American Medical Association, Associated Press, the California Department of Justice, Cal Matters, Columbia Law Review, CNN, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Legal Voice, Mother Jones, Ms. Magazine, which I just recently subscribed to, National Institute of Health, the Texas Tribune, Time, Vox, Washington Post, and of course our good friends at Wikipedia. You probably have a crisis pregnancy center in your neighborhood. They have names like Pregnancy Choice or Sunrise Women's Clinic or Your Choice or Insert Your City Pregnancy Center, Women's Health Clinic. A lot of them include the word choice. The centers, most of which are based in religion, typically offer services like pregnancy tests and counseling, but with an anti-abortion message. And they usually lie to a lot of people about what their options really are. If you're against abortion and want to encourage women to carry their pregnancies to term, obviously that is within your right to open a clinic and encourage those sort of things. But you don't have a right to trick women into having babies. And if you want to stop abortions, you could also offer birth control, which a lot of these centers do not do. So here we are.
For God's sakes.
I know. What started as a bunch of small, locally run centers to discourage women from getting abortions has grown into an anti-abortion movement with political clout and government funding. Yes, the government pays for a lot of these things. And they have only grown more powerful since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade last year and removed abortion right protections. So let's get into it. We're going to start with a little history. The crisis pregnancy centers first started popping up in the 1960s, mostly as a Catholic-backed thing to prevent abortions by offering mothers counseling and like social service referrals. One of the first ones that popped up was this Catholic evangelicist. Did I pronounce that right? I don't know. Robert Pearson. He started the first
evangelist.
With a evangelist. Thank you. Yeah. Crisis pregnancy centers also go by CPC. So if you hear me say CPC, that's what I'm talking about. He opened one of the first ones in Honolulu in 1967 because abortion got legalized in Hawaii. He said, and this is a quote, "A woman who wanted to terminate her pregnancy has no right to information that will help her kill her baby." This is not really what abortions are. So cool. So he formed something called the Pearson Foundation. It outlined all these instructions and guidelines for other people to offer their own like crisis pregnancy centers, along with like brochures and like images to like persuade pregnant women not to get abortions. Then we get like 1968, we get the first network of centers called Birthright, and that's in Canada. Then we get ones called Alternatives to Abortion, which is now known as Heartbeat International, and that was founded in 1971. We have the Christian Action Council, which founded theirs in Baltimore in 1980, and then they changed their name to CareNet. They changed these names for a reason,
right? Because
they're trying to lure pregnant women in, thinking that they're going to go over all these options for them, and they're not. So the Supreme Court establishes a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. And that's when these like larger groups, including like a lot of like religious activists, joined a so-called like pregnancy help movement, also now known as like the anti-abortion movement or pro-life, which I think is a name. So anti-abortion.
She gave it a raspberry and a thumbs down.
I gave it a raspberry and a thumbs down. So as the movement grew larger, advocates began organizing. So all these different like independent pregnancy crisis centers started going into like networks. They started attending like annual conferences and training sessions, and they start working on like getting legislation passed. and they fully like integrate into the anti-abortion movement. In the 1980s and the 1990s, these centers start to grow and gain power. They get more support through things like our old friends Focus on the Family. We did a whole episode on them. And another thing called the National Institute of Family Life Advocates. And then by the late 1990s, we get like conservative lawmakers start channeling government funds to these pregnancy centers. So as of 2021, this is before Roe v. Wade was overturned, close to 20% of pregnancy centers nationwide now receive public funding. That number's actually gone up since Roe v. Wade was overturned. 12 states funnel up to $8 million of taxpayer money into these pregnancy centers. Texas actually provides more than $50 million a year to these centers. Mm-hmm. At least 33 states that I counted and the District of Columbia raise money for these centers. They sell those like specialty license plate frames that you see, the ones that are like choose life, or, you know, with little like baby footprints on them and stuff. They raise money that way. 10 states have actually diverted funds from the Federal Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. So normally that program would be giving money to like help vulnerable families, like with like food and rent and childcare. And instead they're taking that money and they're diverting it to these crisis pregnancy centers.
Jesus Christ.
It's really frustrating because all we hear here in the United States is that states don't have money for like lunch programs, right, or, you know, for helping people that like really, really need it. But they have tens of millions of dollars for these crisis pregnancy centers that trick a lot of women into having babies. So they receive government support and funding, but they are not subject to any kind of like regulations or requirements as health facilities. They are largely unregulated. In 2018, this is, again, before Roe v. Wade was thrown out, the Supreme Court actually ruled that these pregnancy centers can't be required to tell their patients about other like state-offered services, including abortion. Not surprisingly, creep Clarence Thomas wrote the deciding opinion on this because he's
a piece of shit.
A piece of shit.
Established.
They ruled that any law that like it would violate their constitutional right to force them to tell women that abortion was actually an option for them. The goal of these centers is to persuade women, it's like to dissuade women from having abortions. They promote like parenting, adoption. They offer counseling, baby supplies, but only if the patients like take the workshops or the classes, and most of them have a religious component. But they also lie to a lot of women. They say things that are just not true. They say things like abortion can increase your risk of breast cancer. They say that abortions can lead to depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicide, infertility, substance abuse, and sexual and relationship dysfunction. One of the articles linked above, there's a story of this woman. Her name is Gabriella. Well, it's the name she's going by in the story anyway. Mm-hmm. Married, already has like a young child, and her husband wanted to get an abortion for her because they couldn't afford to have another child. They went to one of these clinics because they said it was like, it's free. Come in. It's free. She said that she called. They never indicated that they didn't perform abortions. She went in. She said she was there for like almost 45 minutes before she realized that like abortion wasn't even an option for her at this place. She said that they also told her this random statistic that was like 80% of couples who go through abortions break up. It's basically telling her your marriage is going to break up.
Right.
If you do this. And, you know, stories about how people who regret the decisions and then they wait till the end of the appointment to tell her that they don't actually do abortions. There's a story in Ms. Magazine where they sent in an undercover reporter. They told her abortions lead to increased thoughts of suicide, and that if she decided to have the baby later in life, she wouldn't be able to fully love him.
Oh, for God's sakes.
She would always be reminded that she took away his brother or sister. It's so fucked up. They also told her that abortions will scar your fallopian tubes. This is not a thing.
No, it's
happens.
not a thing.
They also told her it increases your risk of bulimia and anorexia. Also not a thing.
Mm-mm.
They also told her that the center would be with her every step of the way, that they would provide support for her for 4 months after giving birth.
Oh, 4 whole months. Because they take care of themselves after that.
Yes. They would give her gas cards and blankets and baby food and baby clothes. But then they told her after 4 months, she would have to go to the state for help. But guess what, everybody? As I stated above, a lot of states probably won't help her because they've diverted funding from those programs to these pregnancy centers. So cool.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, and they do a lot of the shit that, they show like really gory videos that like are fucking gross. They show the fucked up photos that you see people like out front of abortion clinics with. They also misinform women about what stage they are in their pregnancy to prevent them from getting abortions. So sometimes they delay women
until
to the
they're
point
too late.
where yes, exactly. So there's a story about this woman who goes into one of these centers. She takes a test. It's positive. And they're like, you should come back in 3 weeks and we'll give you another test to make, and she did it. That's when she learns she's 19 weeks pregnant. And now the state has an abortion ban after 15 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
forcing
it's kind
women
of
to give birth. Let's think about that for just a second. Forcing women to go through a pregnancy. I mean, and there's so many screwed up people in the world. It's like,
and just
I get it. Some people will regret it. Of course, it's like any choice in life, and I'm not. I don't want to downplay that.
Yes,
but we don't live in a theocracy. It's a democracy. Like, we're supposed to be able to have agency over our own bodies. We're adults.
Yes.
And if you you don't want to give people, more than a few weeks. If you're lucky, you get to take some maternity leave. Paternity leave is sneered at. You just said, like, a lot of places don't even want to pay kids to have lunch at school.
Yes.
And they're worried about what's on their bookshelves, which is like the last thing you should be worried about. I mean, it's just Christ on a cracker.
I know. Ugh. And they downplay like what pregnancy can do to your body, for one thing. And childbirth, by the way, they downplay like the impact of that. They downplay like the cost of what it has to. Not everybody can afford.
Salaries are not going up, y'all. Have you figured that out yet? I mean, kids are expensive.
It's not like you can have a kid and like money magically fucking appears. It doesn't happen. And babies are expensive. They are. And like, I realize that there are other people in like other parts of the world that don't have a lot of money and have babies, but like, we can't force people to give like, and again, like, if you don't believe in abortion, it's weird when people say, I don't believe in abortion. It makes it sound like it's not a real thing. It's like, I don't believe in Santa. It's like, no, abortion's a thing that exists. But like, if you don't think abortion should be an option, that's your choice. But it's not for you to make that choice for other people. I think it's fucked up. And I hate that these centers, we're going to get into it, but they lying to these women into something that is like really going to change their lives. This is not nothing. This is a huge fucking thing that you're tricking them into. It's awful. It makes me so angry. There's a story about a woman who had an atopic pregnancy. Is atopic? That's a very serious thing. Like,
Yeah.
you can die from that. She was told she could carry this baby to term if she was careful. Like, no, you cannot carry that to term.
How are you careful? You can't just leave your house for 9 months? I mean, what does that mean?
I don't know what it means. She didn't know what it meant, and luckily she went to another doctor, and they're like, like, that's not a thing. They also falsely promise that they can help you, like, reverse an abortion pill. Like, if you take, like, a Plan B or something, that they can somehow reverse that. That they give you, like, high doses of progesterone. I think I pronounced that right.
Progesterone.
Thank you. And that it does not do that. It just makes you sick. It just makes you sick. It is not a proven ethical thing to do. There have been no studies. Currently, California is currently suing pregnancy centers that say they do this because it's not a thing.
Right.
So many of the millions of women who visit these centers stumble into them by accident. The centers often present themselves as medical facilities. They mirror, like, abortion clinic logos. Again, they use the names like Your Choice and Women's Health Clinic. They advertise themselves in these very misleading ways. We've probably all seen the billboards along the highway. It's like, pregnant, ? Scared, ? Need help, ? And they also use Google ads. Like, they're very good with their SEO. Like, and you type in anything like that, they are the first things that appear. I saw this in an article. I tested it myself. They are the first things that pop up. They are very good at this. Data from the Center for Countering Digital Hate show that 71% of crisis pregnancy centers use deceptive means by spreading debunked misinformation. And 38% of them don't even state it on their homepage that they don't provide abortion care. So it's fucked up. They also like to set up near, like, health clinics. So,
to confuse people.
To confuse people. So, like, there's this one where, here it is. Okay, so there was a Planned Parenthood in Massachusetts. It's on the 6th floor of this building, and another center opens up in there called Problem Pregnancy.
Oh, PP.
Also PP. Yes. They rented office on the same floor. Anyone who was, like, heading for the Planned Parenthood would see the, like, PP logo
and would walk right to
and
it.
Like an arrow, and it says, like, free pregnancy testing, counseling, walk-ins available. They think they're going into Planned Parenthood, and they go into Problem Pregnancy and get all these bullshit lies.
Okay, and also Planned Parenthood, because I had somebody try to debate me about them, and I said, do you understand how hard it is to find a decent gynecologist nowadays? Yeah. And they're very expensive, and, uterine cancer, those kinds of cancers,
yes,
they're a part of your body you can't see or check.
Yes.
So it's important to go to a specialist, because they were trying to say, like, you can't get mammograms there. I'm like, yeah, dumb fuck. I've had, no, they don't. But those checks are just as important every year.
Yes.
That's a place where you can get that in an inexpensive manner by people who care about you. And it's unbelievable.
Yes.
I mean, to lie. And then who are these yahoos that are then, because they're, is it a doctor that's helping these women? Are they nurses? Like, who are these people that you have your foot in stirrups? Who's this person that's checking you if it's not Planned Parenthood?
The people who work in these centers are not medical professionals. They're not even nurses. But they put them in lab coats and make it look like they're medical professionals. They're not. They could work a sonogram machine, an ultrasound machine or whatever, but, like,
there's plastic surgery places like that too. You have to be really careful. Yeah.
It's really, really scary.
Yeah. That's just what I think of. Like, what kind of things are going on in there? And you can get infections or...
Yes.
Oh, my God.
People need to remember, too, first of all, Planned Parenthood, like, abortions is, like, a small thing that they do. Like, people act like it's a fucking abortion
Machine.
drive-through. Yeah, like you just walk in and everyone's getting abortions. Like, I used to go to Planned Parenthood all the time because I had no medical insurance.
Right.
And I would go, and that's how I got my yearly exams.
Yes.
That's how I got my birth control pills. Like, and this is the only way I could afford it. And like, again, like you said, getting screened for uterine cancer, for ovarian cancer is super important. These are things that you cannot check for yourself.
You cannot check for
And
yourself. Right.
And they are very aggressive cancers.
Right. Because it
Very
hides up
aggressive.
in your body and then it multiplies very quickly. It's
Yes.
It's scary as shit.
Yeah. And they'll
it's
say
really
like,
important
well,
to get that done.
yeah, and they don't do mammograms or whatever. Yeah, but you can give yourself your own like breast check as well.
Right.
you
Your
know.
doctor can
By
do
the way,
that as well.
Yes. Also, you should get mammograms. if you can.
Absolutely. And you should self-check yourself, self-check yourself, whatever. But
You better check yourself before you wreck
yourself. But yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you have to get that pap smear. That is a very important test. Nobody
is.
enjoys it. It's not fun.
No.
But you got to do it because the earliest they can detect something, this first is the earliest they
Yes.
can combat it. And there's a lot of women who aren't getting that done because there aren't decent OBGYNs. It's very expensive to be one. They have like very high, they have to pay very high insurance rates and stuff like that. So it's already, I know a lot of women who've been to Planned Parenthood just to get their pill and for their exam because it's hard to get, even in New York, it can be hard to find a doctor.
Yeah. It's also bananas to me that so their whole thing is we don't want women to get abortions. So it's like, okay, well then you hand out birth control, right? No, they don't. And they like lie to people about they're like condoms don't work. Like, all this. It's just, ugh. There's another, there was another center called AAA Women for Choice, and they were in Virginia. They purchased like a closed abortion clinic and then had all the calls forwarded to their phones. So like people thought they were calling like an actual abortion clinic, and instead they were getting this pregnancy center that wasn't actually going to help them. A lot of these pregnancy centers, they are affiliated with national anti-abortion advocacy groups, CareNet, Heartbeat International, and then they collect your personal data from these women as well. They interact with women, like millions of women every year, and they collect their like telephone numbers, any online chat you have with a bot. They collect their sexual and reproductive histories, their test results, ultrasound photos, any information you shared during your consultation. If you attended a parenting class.
Max is not having it.
Yeah. The counseling centers, any pregnancy center, like if you diapers, whatever, like, again, oh my gosh, sorry everybody if you can hear that. They are not licensed medical clinics. They are not legally bound by federal health data privacy laws. This is a big fucking deal.
Just that equipment. Is it clean? Is it? I mean, oh my God.
We talk. There's a lot of talk now about like our data and our privacy and things like that, and especially right now, where abortion is illegal in a lot of states right now in the United States. This kind of data has a lot of legal implications. Like, you are on the record as someone who was pregnant and was looking maybe for an abortion. And now they have and there's like 3 states already that have laws on the books where private citizens can sue abortion providers. In 2 states, there are ones that you could sue people who aid someone else in getting an abortion. And there are proposed bills to target pregnant women themselves if they get an abortion. So the fact that women can be tricked into walking into these pregnancy centers and handing over like really sensitive information about themselves, they could be putting themselves in legal jeopardy without even realizing it.
Oh my God.
which I think is something people aren't really talking about. Like, I think we see a lot of stories about, how these centers are kind of bullshit. They don't give you all the options, but I think it's a really big fucking deal that these women could get arrested for accidentally sharing their information with the wrong people because they think it's a medical, they think their information's private.
Right. Because they don't have to abide by HIPAA.
Correct.
Ragey Marco is going to explode in a second.
Oh, it makes me so mad. So last year, Arkansas actually passed a law that requires women who are seeking an abortion to call like abortion alternative hotlines, and then they would direct them to a pregnancy center. And then that same law requires the callers to be given like a unique, I'm putting this in quotes, unique identifying number, which then they register in a state database. Like 5 other states are considering doing
what?
This. They're tracking these women.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not fucking kidding you.
Oh, God.
And then let's say like, so here, the state of Texas is actually currently suing Yelp, and Yelp is countersuing because the state of Texas is suing Yelp because they were posting on their like reviews of pregnancy centers that they have limited medical services. Like, it's accurate. They're not even saying like, yeah, fuck these people. Like, it just says like they offer limited medical services. And you would think Texas has better things to do, but clearly not. They are suing Yelp for just identifying them as pregnancy centers and not as a medical clinic. Texas also is allowing these pregnancy centers to teach sex ed in Texas schools.
No.
Okay. Y'all are going to love this part. Okay. So students are being told the basic, we're back to like just pretending that sex isn't a thing teenagers are doing. And they're just like, sex before marriage leads to bad things. That's what they're teaching these kids. There's an article from the Texas Tribune in the show notes. It's worth a read. Here's the thing. Like, they're telling them all the shit. Like, if you go from sex partner to sex partner, your brain's like mold and gel in a way that like accept this sexual pattern is normal and like all this stuff. The kids don't give a fuck. They know it's a fucking joke. They are laughing at them. They're laughing at them. They're like, the only way to be safe is abstinence or whatever, to wait till marriage. And all the kids are like, too late for me. Like, kids aren't stupid.
Now,
they know.
Right. And they can get information. But I mean,
yes.
the whole point is like, it's their health that you're all concerned about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
not
like,
their soul.
So
that's not our jobs. This is a democracy, not a theocracy.
Yes. Exactly. So that's some money well spent, Texas. Like,
well,
you're giving those kids something to laugh at, basically. We've had a few elections here in the United States. Maybe you've heard about them. And since Roe v. Wade has been thrown out, voters in those elections have made it very clear that they think abortion should be safe and legal, and that women should be able to make their own decisions. And they have added abortion rights into their state constitutions. But anti-abortionists, they don't care, about what people want. So they're finding other ways to fund these crisis pregnancy centers. Many states are voting on legislation that will offer tax donations to crisis pregnancy centers. So Ohio just recently, just last week, passed something that is putting abortion rights in their constitution. They are going to maybe pass some legislation that like you get a tax write-off if you donate to a crisis pregnancy center. This could cost the state as much as $10 million a year.
So are they nonprofits? Is that the thinking?
I don't know if they're actually nonprofits or not.
Because that just seems really weird. That just doesn't.
I
Why should
think
that be a tax
actually,
write-off?
I think, from what I've read, some are for profit and some are nonprofit. So
I mean, they're not there to
I'm-
make money. Obviously,
Yes.
they're there to like stop abortions.
Yes.
That's their mantra. So they don't. But
Yes.
if it's not technically a nonprofit,
Correct. So I'm going to
just mind
assume
your own
that it
fucking
means
business, people.
which ones you donate to will depend if you get the tax write-off or not. But again, this is $10 million that they're telling us like is for this, not for about like, say, living children. Like,
or
they could
infrastructure, the roads,
Yes.
the bridges, like
Yes.
school lunches, things that like
Yes.
actually make life better.
Yes. All those things. Like, this is what they've decided to spend their money on. It is like such a waste of fucking money. It's just like, mind your business. So I'll end it like this. There are things that like you can do here if you feel like you want to. One is if you're pregnant or you think you're pregnant and you want to know all your options, like maybe don't go to those places because it sounds like they spread a lot of fucking lies. Like, trust your gut. Like, if you go to a place and you feel like it's pushing an agenda, it probably is. Listen to the way they talk about abortion and pregnancy and adoption. Definitely check the websites. There's a lot of clues on there. I linked in the show notes to a site called Legal Voice, and they have a lot of like useful information about how to identify where you're going. So definitely check that out. And there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world right now. But if you want to do something, you can like make sure that members of Congress are taking steps to like address these like deceitful advertising practices. There are consumer protective legislations that you can support. You can call your congressperson. Just put them in your phone, man. That's what I do. And then I drunk dial them. I do it at like 10 p.m. at night and leave shitty messages. It feels good. Do it. You'll like it. Just be like, fuck you. Support this. Bleh. Do it. Make some calls. Let your representatives know that you support that. Let them know that you want, if they want to support, like if they want to use government funding, how about supporting like some legitimate, actual, real healthcare that's inclusive and medically accurate? Imagine that.
Imagine.
So that's our creep. Pregnancy crisis centers.
Good job, Sonia.
Thank you, friend.
Oh my goodness. All right. We're going to do an energy shift here and we'll talk about our non-creep. Today's person, we're talking, since this is like a health kind of segment that we're doing today, a health topic, we've had somebody recommended in our Facebook group a few times, and I really think it's time to talk about him because he is fucking rad. And it's Martinez Evans. And he goes by the handle 300-pound runner. I have met Martinez a few times. I used to go to Fit Blogging Convention. That's where I met my other co-host, Margot. The Fit Blogging Convention was amazing. The guys that I met there, because they tend to be really great guys. And they would show up and there was like 20 women for one guy. So they would just get tons of attention. And he is just this big old bear of a guy. Just, you want to hug him when you meet him. He is truly one of the kindest people, gentlest people I've ever met. He's a sweetheart. And he, in about little over 10 years ago, he's from Detroit. He and his wife, they've been together for a long time. They moved to Connecticut for her to go to grad school, and he's working at a Men's Warehouse. And he's a big guy. He's over 6 feet tall, and he was almost 400 pounds when he was having hip issues. His hips were really bothering him. And so he goes to the doctor, and the doctor just looks at him, and this is in 2012, and says, "You're fat, lose weight, you'll feel better." And he said, his doctor specifically says, "Try this walking program and you'll feel better." And he's like, "I don't want to walk because I'm going to run." And the doctor laughed at him. And he told him, "I'm going to run. And I'm gonna enter this." I'm sorry, it was in Detroit first. He said, "I'm gonna enter the enter the Detroit Marathon, which was like 4 months away. I'm gonna train and I'm gonna do it." And he does it. Nice. And so, like, so he decides on January 1st, 2013, I'm going to run a marathon, and then he does that year. He's run 8 or 9 marathons by now. And it turns out he had bursitis in his hip, and that was the problem the whole fucking time.
Oh my God.
And
doctors love to like attribute every health problem to weight.
And they never have good I mean, honestly, we just have not cracked this code. And we'll talk about Ozempic probably one day and all that stuff. But yeah, he was, and I know this, I'm not a runner. My sister was a runner. I have friends that are runners, from that group. And they get a lot of harassment, women especially. But a black man running through Detroit, you're going to get pulled over sometimes. And he was.
Yeah.
He worked really hard he basically started, he tried to get a runner to train him to run. And he would meet with people and they would say, I can't train you. You got to lose weight first, because they were afraid he was going to get hurt.
Okay.
So he has his degree in sports science, and he's like, I'm not going to get hurt if I do this correctly. And so he basically had to train himself. He bought every running book that he could find, every YouTube clip. He went to running shops. He tried everything, and he basically worked on his flexibility and his endurance. And the first time he tried to run, after like 10 minutes, he wanted to throw up like everybody else. And then the more he did it, the better he got at it. And like I said, he lives in Brooklyn now, he and his wife. He has over 100,000 people following on Instagram, and it's the Slow AF Club. One time he was doing
I'm writing this down.
Slow AF. And his book is Slow AF, and like it's all tips on how to be a beginning runner. He was in a marathon, and some guy was like, because it was taking him like 7 or 8 hours to run the marathon, and I think it's 42 kilometers. It's like 23 miles, and I think it's 42 kilometers. So he was like towards the end, and some guy was like harassing him, like, you're running too slow. Why are you even doing this? And he gets a lot of fat shaming from people.
Who the fuck are these people?
I don't know who are these people?
Who are these people?
Don't understand. Fat shaming just doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Also, you're a garbage person if you do that.
Garbage. You are total freaking garbage. He was running, and a guy started. So he like gave him the middle finger, and then after that, he started wearing on his back of his shirt. It just says "Slow AF." Like, I'm slow as fuck. That's how I'm gonna run.
Could you imagine like being that shitty of a person?
People,
like, I can't even imagine.
I know. One of the reasons I don't like running is because like a lot of my women friends, they told me like the harassment they get from men is just ridiculous. And there's also just the physical things like of chafing and getting the right shoes. Shoes are expensive, So it took him. He basically trained himself to be a running coach. And so now he has people that work with him. And then he has a book that came out last year. He was in Men's Health naked as a Blue Jay. He had gone down to well under 300 pounds.
Yeah.
But he just got tired of the counting calories and constantly going on the scale. And he's like, fuck it. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to run for fun. I'm going to live life to the fullest. He's also on Twitter. He's on all the social media, Slow AF, or 300 pounds and running. Like, he's like me. He's got a couple of, identities. But he stays in touch with people. They reach out to him saying, hey, I'm just starting running now, And he goes to marathons and he runs in marathons. He also waits around and gives people hugs that he's like connected with.
Aww.
His whole thing is about, he wants to switch the ideology of what we say about overweight people and what they're capable of.
Yeah.
And, thinness is not the equivalent of health.
Correct.
And what he gets a lot of shame also is people like, oh, you're normalizing fatness. And it's just like, life is so fucking hard on its own. We don't have to throw that in there. We just...
Yes, because people who are overweight are not normal. Is that...
I mean, it's the judgment involved, like what we think we know of people and what they're capable of. And this man runs marathons. He's run several marathons. I mean, and he does it. He's perfectly healthy.
Yes.
He has his doctor's notes and everything. He's perfectly healthy and fine. And it's just that he said that his secret is that just you have to just be creative and find ways. And he says he has that inner voice that's mean. And he says you give that voice a name, and he calls his Otis. And Otis is like that drunkle, the drunk uncle that just, gives you a hard time and says stupid shit. And you just say, oh, shut up, Otis. Fuck off, Otis.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he does.
I also do this.
Yeah.
I have a voice that I'm like, fuck off, Debbie.
Right.
Sorry to the Debbies.
No. That's but his is Otis.
Pick a name.
You have to pick a name, right? And that for him helps him with his own, self motivation.
Yeah,
and he's just all about finding creative ways for people to get out there and run. All you need is a pair of sneakers, and definitely the chafing, because I used to be a cyclist, and that shit's like you do not want chafing, but
stuff like. Somebody like him would be very inspiring. Like you and I have talked about this before off mic, the idea of like all or nothing thinking and taking baby steps and things like that. Like he seems like this is someone who can help people like take those first baby steps into trying something outside of their comfort zone. Like you could see like a totally cut runner, but that you feel like you'd never get there.
Right.
Like, I'll never be that healthy. I'll never look like that. And it's like, that isn't what you should be aspiring to. Like, you should be aspiring to your best you, I guess. And some of that requires like taking those baby steps into trying something different. And it seems like that's what he is maybe helping people do. And that's fucking dope.
It's super fucking dope. I mean, exercise is really good for you. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your overall well-being.
Yes.
We all live anxious lives. Anxiety is through the roof for a lot of people, and exercise does help that. But yeah, it's like I said, you don't know what people have been through. You don't know the journey they've been on. And he's just a lovely, lovely person. We've had so many people in the Facebook group tell us like they have his books, they follow him, that he gave them hugs afterwards. Aww. And I've had the pleasure and the privilege of being like at a table with him and chatting him up. And he's just a sweetheart of a guy. And so that's awesome. Our non-creep this week, Martinus Evans.
Great pick.
300 pounds and running.
Good for him, man. I'm not running.
No, me neither. But I know how he feels. Like when I broke my ankle, I mean, I went to some top doctors in New York to help me. And it was like 2 years later that somebody was like, have you tried insoles? Like not one of them. Like sometimes they just.
Yes.
And he had to go to a bunch of different people. He had to figure things out for himself. And so his whole thing is helping people take those baby steps and figuring out the way to do it for yourself. And I just think that's incredible. And
it is. I agree.
He's just super dope. Okay. Well, speaking of dope, if you like the sound of our voices, we co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And we're already getting lots of likes for this one, Sonia. What are we covering next?
We're going to talk about Dragnet from, I think it's 87?
87.
With Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. It is on Netflix right now, so if you want to watch it in advance, you should watch it. I shared the music video that they made on our Facebook group. I was fucking laughing out loud watching it last night. The idea that Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks rap and dance in the video it's worth it just for that.
There's a scene that I posted. It's a woman, Kathleen Freeman, who played the nun in the Blues Brothers. She plays the landlord, and she just does this filthy mouth. That I remember seeing the movie theater and laughing so hard. Like it's just what our brains need.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be very fun.
I think so too, and it's going to drop a little later than usual because Sonia's getting another tattoo this weekend.
I'm getting a tattoo.
Shh, don't tell anybody.
I'll post some pictures.
Yeah. Okay. So please follow us on all the places that we mentioned before for your creeps, and especially non-creeps. That's really helpful. We love your suggestions for that because it really, we're all looking for joy. We're all looking for the bright lights that are out there. So please do that. Our email, once again, I forgot to mention this, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Send us, if you're in Patreon and you want to be on the Christmas card, holiday card list, excuse me. But also, if you want some stickers, and you don't have to be a Patreon member, you could just be anybody in the whole world. If you want some stickers, I'm going to get a bunch of those out next week. So send us an email with your address, and I will send them to you. All right.
So do it.
So do it. Do it up. Sonia, where can they find you?
You could find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter, X, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the places. I'm really trying to not spend time on Twitter because it's just getting fucking worse and worse.
Really, this
Please
week.
find me on Blue Sky. This is where I'm spending most of my time when I am on social media. So do that. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm at Brooklyn Margot for Twitter and for TikTok, and I believe the Blue Sky.
Yes, I
and
think so.
I'm on Threads for Instagram. Instagram and Threads. I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chick. My site is Brooklyn Fit Chick. I forgot to mention, we love it when you use the Annie Potts gift. We got one when you have your choice for your creep or your non-creep. All right, everyone. In the meantime, we'll discuss about next week, because next week is Thanksgiving. So I don't know if you're going away or not, or
nah. I'll be here.
I'll probably be here too. Maybe we'll have a show next week, okay? Everybody, in the meantime, stay safe, be good. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.